Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you ever so much for joining us this evening. It's a real pleasure to have this fantastic film here, and I'm especially pleased to announce that we have the director, Magali Petier, here joining us. If you want to just introduce it, we will be back at the end for a Q&A as well, so if you do have any questions, hold on to them and I'll ask you later.
Hi, thank you for coming. It's our first time in Leeds, so it's great to be here and at this really wonderful cinema as well. I wanted to give you a little bit of background about the film and myself really before you watch it. I was myself brought up on a dairy farm in Brittany in France and came across a lot of white houses dotted around the landscape in County Durham and wondered who they belonged to and who lived in them, and later discovered that they belonged to one estate, the Raby estate, Lord Barnard, and that it was tenant farmers who lived in them. And I wondered, really, why would anyone want to be a farmer, but even more so, a tenant farmer and a tenant farmer? So I set out to record the daily lives of a family of tenant farmers, Tom, Kay, Esme, Hetty and Jack, who you'll meet on screen here tonight. And they agreed to come on board for no financial reward at all, just because they wanted to help me increase the respect for farmers, really. I filmed over 18 months, and there was no CGI, no rehearsal, and no retakes, just my camera and me. And then we had, by the end of the 18 months, I had 62 hours of footage on a hard drive. And with the help of my co-producer Jan Kaywood, who came on board about 2.5 years into the project, and Matt Dennis, our editor, who's here tonight, we cut the 62 hours of footage into 85 minutes, and it did take a little while. The project was, the film was largely self-funded, but we did get a small development grant about 6 months into the project from Northern Foreign Media based in Newcastle. But really, we couldn't have finished the editing without the help of over 180 people from all over the world who donated during our crowdfunding campaign last year. So if there are any of you here, thank you very much. Couldn't have done it without you. And really, with no further ado, I'd just like to introduce you, to present you with the final film, which I hope you enjoy. But beware that you might also become addicted to sheep.
For such a wonderful film. It's an absolute pleasure to watch, it absolutely is. I've got a couple of questions, but I really want to open it up to you guys because I think you have such a lot of different things to say. So if you do have a question, kind of put your hands up and I will come to you. But to start things off, at the beginning I think you said that one of the reasons you wanted to do this was to try and understand why someone would become a farmer, because it's clearly such a challenging existence. Did you feel that by the end you understood it?
Yeah, and I think the reason why they do it, and it'll be the case of most tenant farmers, is that they want to do it and they love it, and there is just no other reason. They love the animals, but they love the landscape, I think, and especially in the case of the Hutchinsons, the reason why they love it so much is because of where that farm is. It's on the top of a hill, and I did ask them once, if you had the money to buy a farm, would you buy a farm? And they did think twice, and they were actually, we're not sure. Of course, we'd love to have a farm, but we wouldn't find the same place. And I think they really love the community. That's, I think, to be a farmer or a tenant farmer, you have to have an incentive, and it has to be a passion, basically.
And I think the way in which you brought the community into the film is really beautiful. In particular, all the scenes in the school are completely enchanting, and the kids are so fantastic. They clearly trusted you and really opened up wonderfully. You said that you grew up on a farm in Brittany. Did that just kind of happen, or was it important to you to include the children and hear their perspective, because in a way it was reflecting back to your experience?
Yeah. But that was from the very beginning. I wanted to have children, really, and that was why when I went, I contacted youth Asperger's, their agricultural support services, who put me in touch with the family. I asked them, did they know farmers who had young children? And young children rather than teenagers was also important for me, because I knew that they wouldn't be as self-conscious as teenagers might be. And also I wanted people to realise how resilient and how intelligent and how aware of the world around them young farmers' children already are. And I think, having brought up on a farm, I felt quite different to a lot of children. Often, I think I just had a very different perspective on life, and also I think being confronted to life and death from a very young age and seeing your parents go through very hard moments at 6 o'clock in the morning or 2 in the morning, it didn't matter. You had to look at them, feel really sad about it, and you were taking all that in, and that affects you in your life and as you're growing up. And so I wanted to see if kind of other children growing up on a farm had similar experiences, and yeah, by making the film I discovered that yes, obviously those kids, they love it, but they are extremely resilient and they already know a lot, about farming and about life, and but they just enjoy where they are, and they're just having kind of a carefree life, really, a childhood, yeah.
I'm really interested to know if there are any farmers in the audience today, or you guys all are regular film watching, live in Hyde Park kind of group. Does anyone have kind of a more personal experience with the farm, I guess is what I'm asking. That's fantastic.
That's when a lot of people say, oh, this is a kind of film that would only attract farmers. Well, you program, yes.
And I think it's an interesting companion piece too. We showed a film a few years ago called Sweetgrass, about a historic sheep herding trail. Have you?
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah.
And it's a comparable, very raw film watching experience. And I think similarly, you fantastically got across, yes, the complexities of life, and it is quite challenging and quite difficult, but then there's a lot of humour. How difficult was it? Because you were obviously just there watching, trying to capture, but then you ended up with 62 hours worth.
Yeah.
How difficult was it distilling this film down into 85 minutes?
Yeah, well, I'll start answering on that, and we have our editor here, so if there's something, Matt, if you feel that there is something I don't cover, just do let us know. Yes, well, it is very hard, 62 hours. At first you look at those 62 hours and you think, why don't make a 62 hours film? It's all great. So it's very much an elimination process, I think, and you just obviously get rid of all the wobbly shots, and eventually we came down to 12 hours, and with 12 hours we felt it was good, and it was already saying what we wanted, and it was constantly looking at what the focus of the film was going to be, and it became quite clear quite quickly that it was going to be sheep, really, and partly because the title quite early on was addicted to sheep. It was first going to be The Grass is Greener, because I was going to make a film about comparing farmers in France and farmers in England, but then decided to focus on one family and shot 62 hours of footage of that family. And so I just lost my thread a little bit. And so with the 12 hours, so that with the title being Addicted to Sheep, we thought, well, we still want to show that aspects of farming, and you do have chickens and you have turkeys, and what it feels like to be brought up on and to live on the farm as well. But at the same time, we knew that sheep was going to have to be the main focus, the main lead throughout. And also, we didn't want to create kind of an artificial climax, but we had a very obvious one, which was the lambing season, and when the lamb dies. So we knew that it was going to have to be kind of in the middle, at the top, to just to kind of lead people, and then kind of the curve go back down a bit, and that was so that's from the 12 hours. That's kind of what we were focusing on constantly. And then we came to 8 hours, and then we came to 4 hours. And for the 4 hours cut was actually very good. and we did think, if one day we wanted to do a special evening, we might show the 4 hours cut. But then we came to 2 hours and we had a rough cut. So a rough cut of 2 hours, and we had a small audience of 10 people, and we asked them, what they thought and gave them feedback forms. And although we liked it, what we found was that it was really intense, and it was in some ways kind of exhausting to watch. And we thought, why is it? And so we, after the feedback, we cut it down to 85 minutes, and still. There we thought, okay, it's working now, and watched it on a big screen. It's very different to watch it on a computer screen and then watch it on a big screen. But obviously the sound and all that was quite raw still. And certainly me, after watching it, I was thinking, my gosh, this, who is going to sit through that? This is really intense. There's so much sound going on all the time. And that's when we had the chance to work with Chris Watson, who is one of the best sound recordists in the world, and sat with us in a sound studio, so the 4 of us, for the whole day, and basically said to us, the reason why it's feeling like this is because you have sound everywhere. And like when Tom is on the quad bike, 200-300 meters away, why do we hear it? Well, the reason why is because he had a radio mic and I was doing the sound on my own, and he said, well, actually, you don't need to hear him. So what we did with him was to remove the sound rather than add more. Although he's credited as additional sounds, but but he did have some, exactly. And so we created kind of a soundtrack in that sense with the landscape, and that is really very much part of the editing skill as well, I think. It's not just about cutting scenes, it's about making the sound work. Got something you wanted to add, Matt?
I think one of the biggest challenges for me was that the editors put all the scenes together, all the different kind of scenes, the lambing and the horn cutting and the horn burning and the show at the end. But actually, we hadn't really worked out the order of the film. And in fact, the very first thing that we filmed, Magali, was the very last thing that we see in the film. So, was the show where they win all the trophies. Yeah. And that was something that was really quite difficult for us to get, was that order. And it turned out we started at winter and we get to meet the family, and then it's spring and we sort of go out to the farm a little bit and meet some of the other characters and the children at school, and then we kind of meet the wider community. So that was kind of really important to sort of get right for us.
And I think the reason why we did that as well was probably because the lambing spring was in the middle as well, and it made sense. It gave time to meet the people and to feel for them. You already knew them by then, and you're friends with them already, and whatever they go through, it's like you're going through as well. And I think that's why when we came to that conclusion in the end, that's how the pace, how that was going to work. And I think the kids, I only shot what I shot at the school was only over one morning. Well, the actual interview was 2 mornings because we had a little issue with sound on the first one, but really it's one morning, one interview, and we had so much footage, really, so many great answers, that it would have been a shame not to use as much as we could, and also we felt that an hour and a half of family was just going to be too much, and people had to meet the community, because the reason why they like to live there is because of the community, and again because we felt the kids were important, in that landscape, really, and the fact that they are potentially, farmers, potentially will be farmers one day, and that's kind of why eventually we decided to just put it across the film, to relieve a little bit about from the harsh moments of that we show, that farming can be, really.
And there is so much humour in the scenes with the children. They're all fantastic. I'm going to open it to you guys now. I'll start up on the balcony and then I'll come downstairs.
What have been the family and community reactions to the documentary or the film, because it sounds as though you've cut different parts of the year in different parts of the film, whereas when you're watching it, it does feel like it's, you know, it's a linear year. Did they enjoy that, or did they find it confusing, or did they think it's a really good portrayal?
No, I think they felt it was very good portrayal, I think, and it really did justice to their way of life in that area of the country. And I think they just, you know, you have shows all year round, and that one just, you know, happened to be in September, and that was the first one that I filmed, but actually I had filmed it a second time as well, so we could have used that, but we decided not to. And so I think, you know, those, every year it's the same pretty much. Obviously, you know, different things happen, and sometimes they have a very successful landing season, sometimes they don't, sometimes the shows are great, sometimes they're not. But really every year the same things happen on the farm, which is why at the end we decided to add the shots of the family back on the farm, because it's a perpetual repetition farming. And so I think they were very pleased with it. I mean, at first when we showed it to the family, they liked it. There was one scene that we hadn't included, which was the horn burning, and you know, they said, well, it's really it's quite unique to our area here in the Petite Day, so we went back in the edit and put that instead of other scenes, or made others a bit shorter. And in the end they liked it, but obviously they were not entirely comfortable until it was shown to the community. So last year we did, in December we did a couple of previous screenings with the people who were involved in the film, and handed feedback forms, and you know, and it was 100%, you know, we love it, and from that moment, you know, they felt comfortable, the community did as well. So yes, I think we have represented, and they think that it has been represented properly. And actually last night, for the first time we showed it in Barnett Castle, which is about just 20 minutes from where the farm is, and that was a little bit stressful, because you never know how people are going to react in that area, you know, where it was done. And we had 170 people, and everybody, you know, just clearly really enjoyed it and were really engaged, and we had a lot of people coming to us saying, you know, this is amazing, this is really represents how Tennant Hill farmers work around here. But what was great about it as well is that actually there was a lot of people who live near a farm their entire life, but they haven't had the chance to have grandparents, or you know, or have never actually been on it or lived on it. And they just don't have an idea of how it is to be a farmer, and to be able to have made the film and to give that opportunity to people to feel their experience in farming, and make them understand a bit more about it. And then when they live next to farmers, then they can actually, you know, converse with and ask them a few questions and learn a bit more, which is great. So that's the idea. I mean, we want, obviously, it's obvious to want to show it to people who don't live in the countryside, and to show it to people in the cities. But actually often there's a lot of people who live in the countryside and still don't have a clue of what it's like to be a farmer.
I just wanted to ask you one question. What kind of cows were they? What breed were they?
They are Herefordshire.
Herefords.
Hereford, that's the word, yes.
But there were some that weren't Herefords. I just wondered what they were.
The name of the pedigree, their pedigree is, I will pronounce it wrong, I'm sure, it's Kinghaup. That's Kinghaughh. Yeah. So that's the name of, so it's Hereford and Kingshope. We didn't want to make the film a political one, and that's kind of why we touch on certain things and make people, you know, kind of open debate, but discuss it and think about it afterwards at home. Yes, I mean, we would hope that it makes people realise how important to take care of your animals, but also how much work goes into producing, you know, the food, and that people are ready to pay what it costs, you know, what it really costs to make food and to make good food, and therefore that there's less big intensive farms that spread out, and instead to encourage those small ones, because that's if you have big farms, it's impossible to look after the animals in the way that they should. And like the Hutchins McKay says when she's with the turkeys, that what they like about it is the fact that they know where their food comes from, they know the produce, and that is one thing about a farmer that often, if you're an owner, you are cash poor and asset rich. If you're a tenant, you are cash poor and asset poor. But the one common thing you have between the two is that even if you don't have money or property, land, you always have food. And that's the beauty. So that's what I think we have to remember, slightly going on a different tangent here, but that it's very hard life for farmers, but the difference between the farmer and the non-farmers is that the farmers have food and they can survive, whereas if you go in the city, they might earn a lot more than farmers do, but it's just not, you have to remember that those people have to buy the food, which the farmers don't. So yes, do you have a bit more focus on your question about the dairy farms?
Whether any of the farms in that area are particularly closed, or whether they were concerned around it, whether it was something that they very much.
In their case, it all relies really on the ready estate, whether or not they are able to keep farming. It's kind of not their choice. While they're able to rent the farm, they can. But the ready estate is where Lord Barnard is now getting. He was on the screen. He was given the trophies at the end, and he's about 91 or 92 years old now, and has been quite poorly and unwell for the last few years. And you just really don't know what's going to happen. Basically, he has a very good son, Harry Vane, who will be the one looking after the estate afterwards, with death duty and all of that. You just don't know what's going to happen. So it could be that yes, some farms are in the end turned into B&Bs, and therefore there'll be less farmers around, which would be a shame, because the reason why that landscape looks the way it does is because of the farmers maintaining the landscape really with their farming. And if they didn't, then it would just look wild and nobody would be able to enjoy it. So yes, there is a lot of, could talk about that all night, I guess. But yes, they are tenants, and they are given a 15-year tenancy in that area, and they farm for as long as they can. But they can't survive generally unless they do another job as well. So yeah.
I think we'll make this our last one, and then we might have to wrap up.
Did you realise that one of the judges for the stock competition was well known to TV viewers?
No.
He's Amanda Owen's husband.
Oh yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right. Yeah.
The Yorkshire Shepherdess from ITV Dales.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I hadn't even thought about it. Yeah. No, I hear his name constantly, but I'd never been introduced to him actually yet before, and it was well after that I had filmed that Amanda Owen started to have more attention and wrote the book. I think it was in 2012. So I was long gone by then. I had finished filming, I think it was in September 2011.
Well, her book's a bestseller.
They are, yeah.
Really sell a lot.
Yeah, I started to read the first one. It's quite good.
Well, he's a Swaledale breeder, so it's part of the same world, isn't it?
Yes.
Not very far away, the farms.
They are quite far. They are in Cumbria, Amanda Owen, whereas that Tom and Kay are in Upper Teesdale. So it's not that far, but I think it's about an hour.
The Owens are in near Mooker in North Yorkshire. Swaledale.
Oh, it's North Yorkshire. We saw it's with the edge of the border of Cumbria, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's probably about 50 miles.
I think it's quite close. Yeah, you could be right there, because there is another one now, James Rebanks, who is in Cumbria.
Well, that's interesting as well, because his book has a similar chronology to your film, because the book starts in the harsh time, the winter, and then it sort of goes through lambing and finishes in the summer.
Yeah, because it's just a natural cycle of farming, really. And what was interesting is we did a screening in Hexham about a month ago, a bit more, a couple of months ago now. And his wife, he was meant to come, but he called his wife just an hour before and said, I'm just stuck in the middle of Cumbria here and I just can't get away, the sheep, something had happened. But she came with her three young children to watch the film, and she said afterwards, she said, what a brilliant film, and actually what we've written, the film, the book is the film basically. It's pretty much the same, and there are two different families, so that is interesting.
And it's a fabulous book, and he's got tens of thousands of Twitter followers.
He does, yeah, he's done very well, and I don't know how he finds the time to farm and tweet at the same time, but it's a skill. It's the same with Amanda Owen. Whereas that Tom and Kay are, things might change, I don't know, but they are really into their farming and into their quiet lifestyle. That's what they're after. And I think, we've had a lot of requests from people asking, could they come for Q&As, and they have done a few, but the reason why I wanted to film them is that they were real farmers, and I don't want to change that, and they don't want that either. So, we brought them to Sheffield for the world premiere, and they were 2 nights with us, and clearly they enjoyed it, but I sent them a text just a couple of hours after they left us. I hope you've arrived well. And yes, we did. We had a good time, but we love to be home. So yes, it's just what they do, and I think. But it's great that there are people like James Rebanks and Amanda Owen, so people on a daily basis can get little updates. And for us, in a way, it's a very historical thing. I think that it's visual. People can experience and feel like they know people in a different way to the way Amanda and James are doing it. It's just a different medium. Yeah.
Well, I will have to bring it to a close there, but thank you so much to you guys for coming out on Bonfire Night, and I hope you make it home safely. And thank you so much to Magali for joining us and for making the film. And thank you so much. Good night.
Thank you very much.